My name's Charlotte Garwood and today I'll be interviewing a special guest. Please introduce yourself and give us a full job title.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'm Jon Pearce and I'm Member of Parliament for the High Peak.
What is an MP?
Well, we are elected. There's 650 of us across the country, and we're elected to go to Parliament and to make the rules by which the country is governed. Some of us are in the government, so one of the MPs is the Prime Minister, one of them's the Chancellor, and then there's lots of other backbench MPs, and then there's opposition MPs who are from other parties who are not part of the government. But we all come together with the aim of trying to create the laws that will make this a better country.
And what party are you with?
I'm with the Labour Party.
What does the Labour Party stand for?
So the reason, what it stands for me is what drives me is that equality of opportunity, creating a fairer society and a stronger economy so that everybody in the country can do well. That means making sure that we have really good education so that a kid, whether they're born into poverty or into wealth, has the same opportunity in life to succeed. And equally, people that are born into good health and bad health are looked after and protected and given them the opportunity to have the best possible life.
How did you get into politics?
And that kind of goes back to the answer that I just gave you, is that I was born into a very ordinary working class family. My dad worked on the railways, my mum was a nurse. And you know, I didn't go to the best of schools, and you know, money was very tight. And from a very young age, without revealing quite how old I am, but I grew up during the 1980s when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister, and things were very difficult for lots of working class kids like me. And that politicised me quite early on, that I wanted a different type of government. I wanted a government that would look after everybody and give everybody opportunities, no matter what their background was. And that stayed through me through my adult life, and ultimately has led me to then standing for Parliament and being elected for the first time last year.
What does a typical week look like for you?
What I've come to learn is that unlike any other job, there is no typical week. So from a basic point of view, Parliament sits, so MPs are required to be there Monday to Thursday. So, you know, you have to be in the chamber, you have to vote on bits of legislation, you have to be available to talk, or if you're a government minister, you have to be in the department running things. So Monday to Thursday, you have to be in Parliament. And then on Fridays and Saturdays and, you know, the weekends, you know, I'm here. I do surgery. So this morning I did a surgery here in Chapel, which is like people coming to me and saying, you know, I'm having a real problem accessing, you know, this treatment within the NHS, or I'm really struggling to pay my bills at the moment. whatever it may be, that, you know, and then I can try and help them if I possibly can, by writing to people, by, you know, taking up their case for them. And then we get out, we meet lots of businesses, we go to schools, we try and do everything we can to like make the case for High Peak. And that's, you know, is my job as far as I'm concerned, which is to go to Parliament and represent the High Peak to get us the best possible legislation, the best possible deal from government. And then when I'm here, you know, to really understand what people are concerned about and how I can help businesses and charities and everything else going on in the constituency, ultimately to try and achieve that, you know, that cause of trying to make a better, fairer society, and particularly here in High Peak.
And what advice would you give to any young people wanting to get into politics?
Do it. Like, it's like everybody is political. Most people just don't really put that label on it. You know, if you care about the environment or animals, or, you know, you're worried about your future and jobs, or, you know, like the care that your parents are getting, you know, or like kids hanging around in the park. You are political. Like, you know, you're worrying about a problem that's facing your local community, your country, the world, and there's huge opportunities, whether it's joining political parties, but also just getting involved in your local community, into action groups, into into campaigns, national campaigns, and we need lots of young voices to be out there. And to be fair, your generation and that are very active, which is brilliant. So yeah, absolutely.
16 to 17-year-olds have been given the right to vote in the next general election. What do you say to people who think that they are too young?
My view about giving 16-year-olds the vote has always been the same, which is there are people like me and older who, you know, it's like our concerns are very much in the moment, like in terms of, look, we've already got jobs, you know, we might be looking for a house and so forth. But I think young people actually have got the most interest in politics, because what we're talking about is they're going to ultimately inherit whatever we leave them behind, my generation and older generations. And so they have a vital voice to say in terms of, like, this is what we want the world to look like in 50, 60 years' time. And so their voice is hugely important within that political discourse. And I think by them not having the vote, and when I go into schools and I talk to young people, they're as informed, if not better informed, than many other generations. So I think I'm excited about 16 and 17-year-olds having the vote. I think it'll really add to the political discourse in this country. And I think it'll make our politics better.
Okay. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing young people today?
Well, from talking to young people, strangely enough, like every other generation, there isn't just one thing that's bothering young people. And I get quite frustrated with people that just assume that it's like young people think homogeneously, like in one way, and this is what they're concerned about. When I talk to young people, they're concerned about everything. They're concerned about getting the right, their education and getting the right skills and qualifications. They're concerned about antisocial behaviour on their streets. They're concerned, yes, about the environment, but also about healthcare, and many of them are carers. It's the full gambit. But when you're looking at, some of the fundamental challenges that young people face as they move from school into training, into university and so forth, are really quite fundamental. Like, we don't have enough housing in this country. It's very difficult for young people to get onto the housing ladder. The average age keeps going up at the point at which people buy their first house. We've got to be able to deal with that. We need a growing economy in order that young people have good jobs available to them, and we need to change the way education's delivered so that the vocational routes and skills is valued just as much as going to university. And for too long, that the emphasis has been in the wrong direction. So, as I say, I think there are huge challenges that actually young people face, and that's why it's brilliant that they're going to get more of a say in our political system.
But if you could just name one.
If I could just name one, ultimately, I do think it's our economy. Like that is going to be what's going to make the biggest difference to young people's lives. There's a generation at the moment that left school in about 2007 who are now into their 40s, and they've never had a growing economy. We had the credit crunch in 2007, 2008, and we've not seen improvements in standards of living. We've not seen increases in the jobs that's available and the opportunities there. And that is having a serious impact on our country, on people's lives. And so getting an economy where we're investing, we're we're improving productivity, we're improving the skills and opportunities for young people. That's what's going to make the biggest difference to all of the other issues, whether that's health, whether that's education, whether that's the environment, whether that's housing. That's the fundamental that's going to make the biggest difference to young people.
When you say economy, what do you mean by that?
I mean the jobs that's available to you, the money that's in your pocket. So for far too long, people have really struggled to be able to, buy the things that they want to do, go to the places they want to do, because money's been so tight. With a growing economy, people feel better off, and as a result, have more opportunities. Poverty is the biggest restraint on quality of life, health outcomes, and everything else. Reducing poverty, particularly for young people, will make the biggest difference to the standard and quality of life that they have.
What would your solution to that be?
Well, we are, as a country, for too long we've borrowed too much money. We've not invested in our economic, opportunities, whether that's structural things like, trains and roads and hospitals but also, the internet, things that will make us compete with the rest of the world on energy costs. So we have to put the fundamentals right in our economy right now, which is easier said than done. But by doing that, we will have a huge opportunity, I think, over the next few years to finally see growth coming back in, to see businesses start to develop, to see investment coming into this country. And when that starts to happen, it becomes a virtuous circle. We've had the opposite for about 17 years. This is our opportunity to change that, and that is the challenge for this government. How do we deliver growth? Because that will be the biggest change to young people's lives, in fact, all our lives.
If you could change one thing about politics, what would it be?
I would change social media. I think the biggest challenge for now, and I think for your generation and future generations, is how do we have political discourse in this country that is informed, that is factual, and that can be done in the right way. At the moment, social media basically is causing two things. It's causing huge amounts of misinformation that people don't know how to fact check, and they don't know what the actual truth is. And by making people feel that they can say things online because they're anonymous and removed from it, it's causing debate in this country to polarize. There's far too much hate and anger and not enough discourse and coming together on issues. And if it continues the way it is, it will become almost, I think, impossible to have proper democratic, informed debate in this country. And so if I was your generation, I would be really concerned about social media and how do we better control it? How do we make sure that there is information out there that people know that they can rely on? And how do we have a better discourse? And how can we agree and disagree, in a better way than we are at the moment? Because it's a huge risk, I think, to democracy. And democracy is the most important thing in terms of delivering a better politics.
What would your solution to that be then? What would you do to change how social media works?
Well, I think the social media companies need to be either more responsible or made to be more responsible. And I think people online need to be responsible or made to be more responsible. Now, I think what's really interesting is I will have people come up to me in the street and be really nice, and we'll have a nice chat. And at the end they'll go, oh, by the way, I'm really sorry about what I said online. But it doesn't really matter, does it? And I won't twig the two, because often they'll have a different name online, and and obviously I don't remember everybody that sort of comments and so forth. But the fact that people think that you can behave differently online than you can in the street and in, you know, normal human interactions has got to change. People have got to be responsible for, you know, what they say online, and we need to make sure that there are lots of different ways in which people can continue to get their information. So I do think newspapers, you know, and news and other sources of information are really important, that we continue to invest in them as a society, because they are a natural check on misinformation.
What would you most like to be remembered for during your time as an MP?
I don't know. Well, you know, I'm only just over a year in, so I haven't, you know, and I'm hoping to be around a little bit longer. Look, I don't really care to a certain extent as to whether I'm remembered or what I'm remembered for. I think my key thing will be how I judge it myself, in terms of, have I managed to, you know, make a difference? You know, have we managed to help individual people that I'll remember and think, yes, you know, we did a good job there, and we helped that person, and, you know, we resolved the problems for them. And equally then, you know, when we leave, are people in a better place than they were when we came in? We're not going to be able to solve every problem. We're not going to be able to make, you know, High Peak and Britain perfect. But can we honestly say, hand on heart, that people are in a better position in terms of, they've got access to education, they've got better healthcare, they've got better job opportunities, housing, etc. And you know, going back to our first set of questions that we were talking about, you know, have we got that fairer society and fairer opportunity for all, and can people really, you know, have the opportunity to fulfill their own ambitions? That, you know, that will be all I really care about.
Would you say you have any concerns about the world as a whole outside of England?
Oh, massively, yeah. You know, and I mean, going back to our conversation earlier about, you know, where I said, like, all of the problems that we face as a country are problems for, you know, for young people. The risks in the world, the instability in the world right now, particularly in terms of the Ukraine, for us here in Europe, and the actions of Vladimir Putin in terms of the invasion, that's a massive risk to, you know, all of us in this country, because we don't know where that will end. And we are now in a more insecure world than I think we've been in for 30 years. And that's going to be a major challenge for young people going forwards, as we, you know, how do we deal with that? What will be the outcome of that? You know, and I do think democracy around the world is under threat for the reasons that I've just been talking about, in terms of if you can't trust information, if there's no good sources of information, and it's and all of the dialogue is being driven to extremes, and we're seeing that in our politics to an extent, but we're seeing it around the world. Now, if we start to lose democracy and the ability for people to have a say in their governments, at the same time of having aggressive dictators and huge amounts of instability, and the pressures that will potentially come with climate change in terms of reductions of things, you could paint a very negative picture of, like, the direction the world's going in, which is why, as I say, it's really important that 16 and 17-year-olds, I think, are having a positive voice in this, because this is the world that, you know, that they're potentially facing, and we need their voice within that. And as a country, like Britain, we hold dear many of those values in terms of democracy and liberty, that, you know, we have to stand up in the world, and which is what, you know, Keir Starmer and, like, this government are doing around the world, which is standing up for those values and talking, you know, like, trying to protect Europe, standing up to Putin. These are hugely important issues at the moment.
And what are you doing to stand up to Putin?
Well, we are absolutely one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine. I mean, I'm sure you'll have seen the Ukrainian flags around High Peak, which I'm very proud of, and we've obviously taken in many Ukrainian families, but we're also supporting Zelensky in terms of both his attempts to try and end the war, but also making sure that he has the resources in order to protect Ukraine, and then within NATO supporting the countries that are also most threatened, whether that's Estonia, whether that's Poland, from the threat that Putin poses.
Is it okay if we have some quick fire questions?
Yep, let's go for it.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%.
Marmite, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favourite kind of music?
Indie music, like Oasis, Nirvana, that kind of stuff.
Okay. If you could meet any famous person, who would it be?
I actually met them. Brian Clough used to be manager of Derby County, our most successful manager. He was even very nice to me. Said I should have been a centre back, which is.
Okay. What do you do to relax?
I watch sport. I watch Derby County or any football, even American football these days.
Okay. Well, that's all my questions. Thank you very much for answering.
Brilliant. Loved it. Thank you.